Hi guys, welcome to Jason's Trucking Info. I'm Jason, and I'm going to go over some of the things you can expect as you get into the trucking industry. This video is for newbie truck drivers, and any of you seasoned truckers that want to add to what I have to say in the comments, please feel free to do so. I always like to lean on other truckers to get their point of views as well as mine for you guys out there that are just starting out. So a few things you can expect when you get out there is you're going to run into all kinds of crazy different things, and you're going to hear all kinds of stuff. Try not to get sucked into the drama that runs rampant in the trucking industry, and try to stay in your lane. If you don't hear it from a reliable source, if it comes from other truckers, listen to that information, but whatever you do, don't take anything you hear that doesn't come from a qualified source like your dispatcher or somebody that should know what they're talking about. Be careful about taking information from other truckers, because there's a lot of truckers out there who might be giving you wrong information. Most truckers won't try to intentionally give you bad information, but there are some out there that will. You got to be very careful about where you get your information from in the trucking industry, because there are a lot of guys out here that will try to steer you wrong. Most truckers won't do it intentionally, and there's a lot of truck drivers that are know-it-alls, that they think they know what they're talking about, but they're giving you really bad information, and they may be well-intentioned, but they just want to give you bad information. So always check your sources out. Okay, check the information against other sources, and always ask other people. Never ever just trust any information you get blindly. Never trust a GPS, because all GPSs will at one point or another take you down a wild goose chase and send you down the wrong way. I don't care what brand of GPS you have. I don't care how new it is. I don't care if it's been updated. I don't care. I just don't care. All GPSs, whether it is a GPS unit or an app on your phone, all GPS apps or devices are only as good as the programming, and they don't know everything. You're going to get in here every once in a while, and your GPS app or device is not going to be able to find what you're looking for. It's not going to know the address, and you're going to have to find a different way of finding a way to get to wherever you're trying to get to, whether it is a customer or a fuel stop or whatever. Sometimes if it's a new enough fuel stop, it might not be in your GPS. I've run into that before. So just remember that. Always vet. You know what that means? Always check your information against other sources before you just blindly follow what you're being told. I don't care if that's from your trainer, your dispatcher, your company people, whatever. Check your information against multiple sources. Sometimes your company is going to try to be stricter than the DOT just to cover themselves. They're going to have policies and procedures that are going to be stricter than the DOT will have, and that's just to cover them so they can try to keep themselves out of hot water with the DOT when they come to do their inspections. But after you've been driving a while, you're going to learn that there's a lot of things that just aren't so, and there's things that you can do, and your company may or may not try to enforce their rules that are going to be stricter than the DOT rules. And if you can show them that you know what you're doing and you've been driving long enough that you know what you're doing. But some companies just don't care how long you've been driving. They're going to enforce their set of rules that are stricter just to keep they're trying to keep themselves out of trouble. That's just the way it is. So appointment times are kind of a guide, but you always want to try to keep them, and always try to get from wherever you are to wherever you're supposed to be next as soon as you can, legally. Okay? You don't need to speed. Just do the best you can. Get there and be on time. Be early. Always try to pick up your loads early. Find the phone numbers. Try to call those places early and see if you're going to be able to get loaded if you show up early. And use that information to best serve you to managing your hours of service, your clock, your driving clock. Maybe you'll be able to get a 34-hour restart if your hours are screwed up. If you can call them places, like this place here, they don't have a number that I can call. I could have got a 34-hour restart in the last 2 days had I known I didn't need to drive all the way out here and wound up wasting my time driving over here to try to pick up my load, because appointment times were all jacked up and things just kept getting pushed back further and further. I could have had a 34-hour restart and could have had fresh hours to just turn and burn, baby. But that isn't the case. I didn't know, and couldn't get a hold of anybody to find out. You know, that's just the way it is sometimes in the trucking industry. Sometimes things are just jacked up that way. So other things you want to do is always try to remember the places. Always remember the places that you're gonna be able to park at, in case every time you go to places, as you get more and more time under your belt as a new truck driver, and as you get more and more seasoned as time goes on, as the days, months, and years progress in your trucking career, you want to try to remember where truck stops are. You want to know what highways, what exit numbers, what locations, and you want to try to remember where in different areas of the country that if you need to find a place to park and you wind up not being able to park at an actual truck stop, maybe you can remember where you last delivered somewhere close by that had truck parking out on the side roads by places that you've delivered or picked up at nearby. Always try to remember those things. Always try to keep an eye out for industrial areas that trucks probably go to pick up or drop off on. You might be able to go park with those guys. You might not be dropping off or picking up at those places, but it doesn't mean you can't go take your 10-hour break there. And hopefully you can remember whether or not the facilities that you were at when you were there have a driver's lounge that you can maybe go into to use a bathroom, and they're very laid back and you can walk in and out of there without getting hassled by security guards or things like that. Remember those things. I always try to keep those places in mind. It's very smart to keep those places in mind. Have all those places memorized, and try not to follow your GPS too blindly. You hear about those guys that have followed their GPS so blindly that they drive right up into a cornfield or a pasture somewhere, and it's just like, why would anybody do that? Why would you turn into a cornfield with a truck? For one, if you don't already know this, if you haven't already figured this out as a new trucker, your truck is way too heavy for you to go off-road. Your front of your truck is so heavy, you will get buried. It might seem dry on top, but there's a lot of moist ground underneath, and your truck is so heavy, it's going to crush right down into that soft mud underneath. Trust me, guys, you know, you don't even want to chance it. You want to stay on the road. Never get off the road. Never get off on anything that isn't paved or gravel. Okay? And even then you want to be careful. Never take dirt roads. Never. Never take dirt roads unless there's an exception to visit part of the facility and they have other trucks doing it and the ground has been compacted enough that they got trucks going in and out of there. But that is not something you should usually ever have to do as a trucker. Normally you're going to be in concrete. You're going to be on blacktop or concrete padding, and you're going to, you know, and you're going to be driving around on regular concrete or blacktop anywhere you go. You want to always stay on that. Never ever just blindly turn down any street without looking down at first before you completely turn, because if your GPS, especially when you've gotten off of the major interstate and off of the highways and you're getting onto those side streets trying to go to a customer, even your trucker's GPS might even try to take you down a road with a low bridge or a road that is posted no trucks. And there's a good reason for why they want no trucks down that road. So always look down the road and look to see, is there a sign that says low clearance? Is there a sign that says that there's a low clearance of lower than what your truck is? And a no truck sign. Is there a no truck sign? Always look for that stuff. Never ever blindly turn down anything. Always before you're going to turn down a road that is not a wide regular road, look down that thing. Be very careful and always use caution. If you are looking at your GPS and the place you're supposed to go to is right down that way, go forth with a lot of caution and go slowly and watch your butt, because sometimes you will be going to places that are located on the other side of a bridge that you'll just barely be able to make it under, or you're going down this road for just a few hundred feet and you're making a sharp left or right, and if you miss your turn to go into this facility, you're in hot water, because you're in an area that you're going to have a pain in the butt getting out of, especially if it required you to turn somewhere. If you're lucky, you'll be able to throw your hazards on and just straight line back up. Every truck driver in their career is at one point or another, probably multiple times, going to have to back up a straight line back to get out of a jam for a long distance, sometimes several blocks. It has happened. People got to do it all the time. It is it's kind of a rite of passage as a truck driver to have to do things like that. And any truck driver that says they've never had to do it, maybe they haven't. But every truck driver makes wrong turns at one time. Every truck driver gets themselves into a jam once in a while. It is knowing how to get yourself out of those jams without hitting anything and destroying property, either your company's truck property or the property of the place you're trying to turn in, use to turn around in. So always look before you turn. Just like they say, look before you leap. Never just dive into water that you don't know how deep it is until you've checked the depth, until you've gone into like a river and you don't know how deep it is. Don't just dive in, because you don't know how deep that is. It doesn't matter where you're diving, feet first or head first. Always go check out the depth of water before you ever go try to just blindly dive in, because who knows, it might be deep, but maybe there's a tree that's buried just low and deep enough in the water that you can't see it from above the water, but you dive in there, you go crashing into a bunch of tree branches not too deep underneath the water and wind up severely hurting yourself, or hurting yourself because you got shallow water underneath, because it's really murky water and you can't see how deep it is. Same thing with trucking. Don't do anything without checking it first. Always look first. Always check things out first. Always get out and look. If you can't see good enough, always look first. If you question anything, go check it out closer. Always check things out close. Always. Never just blindly do anything. And what else could I tell you? As a trucker, you need to know how to put chains on your truck, and you got to familiar yourself with the chain laws, because there's going to come a day when you're going to have to drive through the mountains when the chain law is up, and you are not going to be able to just sit somewhere, because the DOT is going to make you move. And you better have chains on your truck, for one, and for two, you better know how to put those babies on, and you better know what the requirements are of what they expect for chains to be put on your truck in the area that you're at. So you better learn how to chain. And I have a couple chaining videos, but my best one is an example of how to chain up. Look for my playlist and look for that video, an example of how to chain up. My 3-part series of how to chain up is kind of longish. I did a few wrong things in there, but I left that 3-part up. But really, if you know how to chain up, unchaining is just the reverse, and it's easy as pie. That is not nearly as important as my video of an example of how to chain up, because I did everything right in that video, and I showed exactly kind of what to expect when chaining up, and that can give you the basic idea of what to do. Now, I haven't done any videos on how to use auto socks. That seems kind of straightforward. You got to kind of put them over the top of your tires, roll forward, and then put the other part forward, and try not to spin your tires, and gingerly go forward. Whenever you use chains and you chain up, you always use your differential. That is basically a semi-truck's version of 4-wheel drive for the most part. And never drive over 35 with your differential on, and never drive over 35 with chains on. The faster you drive, the more you're gonna wear through them chains, and you want to get those chains on as tight as possible. But as soon as some of those lengths starts getting worn through, because either you're driving too fast, or if you're not driving on a thick enough layer of snow, those chains, and you're driving on ice, on pavement, those chains are gonna wear through pretty quick. And the faster you drive, the faster you're going to wear through them chains. The more those chains are going to start coming apart, start trying to come off, and if you're lucky, they fall off the truck on the outside of the truck, because if they fall on the inside between your two tires, you could start screwing stuff up. You could mess up your crossfires, which are the air hoses that are shared between dually tires, which could give you flat tires. It can screw up both tires. You could have 2 flats instead of 1, and all kinds of stuff will start getting messed up. And as soon as you start hearing any weird noises, that's why you always drive with your windows down a little bit when you drive with your chains on, so you can hear your chains and hear if the chains start making a different noise. And you watch in your mirrors to see if you can see if your chains are starting to look different as you drive. Okay? And if you start hearing that, then you pull over as soon as you safely can do so, and you go out and check them out to make sure they're not starting to fall apart, so you can catch that early before stuff on your truck starts getting messed up from the chains racking up on stuff because they're starting to come apart. So that's just a little bit about chaining. If you want to know more, go watch my video or anybody else's chaining videos. All right. Other things, always try to get to truck stops early. The earlier you can, in the daytime, you can get to a truck stop, the better. The hours between 7 and 11 is about the worst times you can show up to any truck stop. Sometimes it doesn't matter because some truck stops are a zoo no matter what time of the day or night you show up. But some places, as a general rule of thumb, between midnight and the wee hours in the morning, trucks start leaving, and that's when the best spots are available, or early afternoon are the best times to look for a spot to park in, as a general rule of thumb, but that's not a hard, fast rule. As a general rule, appointment times can get screwed up, and things can happen, and you can wind up at a dock forever. You might have appointments get changed on you. You just never know what's going to happen when it comes to appointment times and getting to different places. Always try to have your truck set up so you are not reliant upon being at a truck stop. So the worst thing you need to look for is having access to a bathroom. Alright, that has got to be about the only thing you have access to. And try not to result in being... you'll see videos on YouTube, if you watch enough trucking videos, you'll find some how-to videos of people doing some very disgusting things that you should never have to resort to, like using 5-gallon buckets to piss and shit in. You should never have to resort in. Pee bottles is one thing. Having to take a dump on your truck in something is, I've had to do it. I've even had to do it recently, where I've had to take a dump in a Walmart bag and then have sandy wipes and paper towels nearby, and then get rid of that stuff in the trash, not on the side of the road, not on the ground in the parking lot of the truck stop. People do that. It's disgusting. Throw your trash away in the actual trash can. Take care of it where it's supposed to go. Don't just leave full piss bottles all over the place. Throw your stuff in the trash. If you want to take things the extra mile, dump those off in the grass before you throw them away. If you really want to be kind and courteous to the people that have to handle that nastiness. Have multiple ways of cooking things on your truck. Always have a backup plan. Think ahead. Think of the worst possible scenario that could happen, and always try to find a way to deal with those scenarios. Think about what you're going to have to do if you wind up, if your truck will not run, if your truck winds up having problems and you cannot idle your truck for whatever reason, and you're in severe freezing weather conditions, or you're in severe heat in the summer, in the worst conditions possible, how are you going to handle that situation in the worst possible conditions? Always have a backup plan. Have things that you are... Think about all the worst scenarios wherever you're driving. In any scenario, always play mind games with yourself. In any situation when you're driving down the road, what is the worst possible thing that could happen to me right now? What is the worst possible thing that these cars or trucks could do right now that would put me in a bad way? Always play mind games with yourself all the time, and think about how you're gonna anticipate the worst possible scenario along the way as you're driving, especially as a newbie trucker. As you drive, you're just gonna learn these things as you get more experience, and as you run into situations, you're gonna learn your lessons of, oh, I ran into this problem and this put me in this kind of situation. I don't want to be in that situation again. So in order to be ready for whatever the situation may be, this is the way I'm gonna have to handle this, or these are multiple ways in which I can deal with that situation in the future. So always try to think about those things that you can take care of in the future. So there are a gazillion things that can happen in the trucking industry out there. There's so many different avenues and different types of equipment, different things you can haul, different types of trailers, different gizmos that come available on those trailers that you might have to deal with. Lift gates. You might have to haul your own forklift if you're driving for the right place. You might have to deal with handheld devices if you're doing deliveries with different companies. You might have to use hand trucks or electric pallet jacks or whatever, depending on who you drive for and what you're hauling. You might be doing flatbed. You might have to learn load securement and deal with the elements and get out in high winds or snow or rain to try to fix stuff that might be trying to come loose on your trailer. You might have to deal with a reefer trailer that's not running right. Eventually you're gonna have a truck that is gonna have problems, and you're gonna have to go get your truck looked at, and you're gonna have downtime, and you might have to go get a hotel somewhere. There's all kinds of things that can happen. It's just a gazillion things, and there's a way to go over them all. I'm just trying to highlight all the stuff. So these are all the things that you can expect, and there's a lot more. I cannot cover them all. As a truck driver, you have to inspect your trailers and make sure that there's not damage to those trailers. You got to be checking for nails and bolts and things stuck in your tires. You got to look for tires coming off the bead. You got to look for tires that are flat, that maybe, just maybe, depending on whether or not your trailer is outfitted with self-inflating devices that as soon as you start driving down the road, that tire will inflate itself and keep putting air into that tire. But even if you do, you still might have to go get that tire changed out. But if you don't have a self-inflating device, if your tire is flat but still on the bead, you might still be able to drag out a 50-foot air hose if you have one. They're about $30. Some places, I've seen them in some locations as much as $45. But I did see recently, I was at a couple of truck stops where they had two different lengths of arrows. They had the 50-foot, and I think I saw I think it was a 60-foot air hoses available as well, and those were a little higher priced. And these 50-foot to 60-foot air hoses vary in prices, and they also what was I gonna say? They also or something you should have. They come in a whole bunch of different colors and types and qualities. Try to get you the good qualities. Look for ones that aren't gonna get, if you're out in the severe negative, below zero temperatures, that it's not made out of that rubbery plastic like stuff that is gonna get all cracked up and get holes in them and not work anymore. You want to get stuff that's made out of a more rubbery material That stuff is more likely to do better in the cold temperatures and not crack up on you and bust up and not work anymore, and you'll have wasted your money. But having a 50-foot air hose, I carry one, and I haven't had to use mine at I haven't had to use mine. The only place I've had to use mine is at Alan Ritchie and a few other places, but I haven't had to use it at Sierra England, or I haven't had to use it at Bay and Bay. I'm not sure if I ever had to use it when I was at I never had to use it when I was at Randy's diesel repair, and I don't think I ever used it when I was at K&B Transport. But there will be times where it will save your butt, because I have found out in the last few years that a lot of these air compressors at the truck stops will not fill up your tires past 85 pounds, and you need to get them up to 90 to 100 depending on your tires. And I've noticed a lot of these trucking companies are airing their tires up to about 100 pounds. So keep an eye on what your company is doing. So like I said earlier, make sure you try to remember things that are important. And what is important depends on who you run for and where you go. And try to remember the places that you can go and where you can't go. And remember that whenever you're gonna, as you get more experience, as you drive around the country, you're gonna start remembering how you got to places. You're gonna start old school truck drivers could always remember things more than drivers today, because old school truck drivers had to use a map to route themselves into places. Problem is, once you get off the beaten path, once you get off the main interstates and highways, and you get off onto those side streets, your motor carrier's atlas gets kind of useless, because it doesn't have a lot of those roads even on there. If you're lucky, you're going to one of the major cities that has the city blow up. And more times than not, I have never gone to any of the areas where it even shows the roads that I need to use to get to in those big cities anyway. I'm usually outside of that city blow up, or it doesn't show the roads that I'm going to use on that map anyway. So that's when you got to start using customer directions, using your phone. If you have the right address, these days you got Google Maps and a trucker's GPS that is usually invaluable to find your way into places. And a lot of these places you would never be able to find your way into without your GPS. And you can request customer directions on your ELDs usually. I have not even bothered to do that here. I only had to do it once when I was at Bay and Bay. And when a lot of companies will automatically send you directions with your load assignments. But I'm noticing that doesn't happen as much anymore, because a lot of people are just using their GPS to get into places, even though you get a lot of messages telling you, don't follow your GPS to get into a place, you need to use this street and that street and do this and that and with the other. Well, a couple of those lately, my GPS was already correcting itself and going the way that they were telling me I need to go, instead of the other way to go. So some of that kind of was self-corrected in a lot of cases, but you got to pay attention to those messages. And always, if you're not sure if you're on a truck-friendly road, if you see other semi-trucks coming from the other direction, then you're probably okay for the meantime. But that could change as you get down the road. Maybe trucks are only allowed to go so far down the way you're going. Always when you're at a place, at a facility, always watch the other trucks and see what they're doing, to see how they're doing things, especially if you're at a place that has very tight docks or whatever, to see what other trucks are doing, where they're pulling up to, how much they're struggling, see where the trucks that are having an easier time getting in and what they did. And that goes just all the time. Whether you're a seasoned driver or it's your first day trucking, watch other truckers to see what they're doing at places you go to see how they are doing things, how they're getting into docks, what they're having to do, and follow their lead depending on how what they did worked out for them. So those are just a bunch of tips that I can come up with off the top of my head. I'm surely there's got to be more things I could have brought up in this video. Other of you truckers, please get in here and fill in the missing pieces of things that I may not have said, things I should have said, or what have you. Please fill in the gaps and help other truckers out that may be watching these videos, so that we can help the newbie truckers become better. So just good luck to all you guys out there. I hope everything's going well for all of you, and hopefully everybody is getting taught better and learning things before they wind up getting into a jam that winds up being career ending. Hopefully you can learn how to get yourself out of those jams, and figure out how to not get into those jams in the first place. So good luck to all of you guys. Hope you're all being safe and making lots of money and getting those miles or hours if you're a local driver or what have you. Good luck, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks, guys.